the newest. That's a good thing. Again, Dawn Page, Concerned Black American Citizens. As I said, formed back in 2019, a nonpartisan political organizing effort. I think all of our movements in the past have kind of been stymied because our movements have seemed to fail to reach the broader public. When our members are cut down or are tired or distracted. Sometimes, or in the past, our movements have kind of stalled out. And so this is an effort to share the message as far and wide as possible, so that people in the community, Black Americans who are descended from chattel slavery, understand what reparations are, what they are not, the kind of policies that we are up against. And so with that, as Khaleef said, we want to get into this presentation very quickly so we have time. So if we can go to the first slide. Next slide. Are you not able to go to the next? Are you not able to go beyond what are reparations? Reparations is a journey, as we just saw. So reparations is a fight that began as soon as we were emancipated. Many people may think that reparations is something you just started hearing about, but actually, Callie House, who was born in 1861, started the first reparations movement, the Ex-Slave Mutual Benefit Relief and Bounty Pension Association. And they had their first meeting back in December 1st of 1898. So this is a fight that has been ongoing and has had many iterations over time. If we can go to the next slide. So what are reparations? Reparations are owed to the descendants of American chattel slavery and Jim Crow. If you look at this chart, the current racial or lineage wealth gap is clocked at about 20 to 1. And the collective wealth position for Black Americans is expected to fall to 0 by 2053. He's saying that he can't see the screen. So, Khaleef, are you showing? Can we all see the screen?
I can see it, Dawn.
I can see it.
Okay.
I can see it.
Great.
So you all can see the screen?
I think I can't see the screen now.
I can see it as well.
Yeah, not no more. I came back, but I'm.
Okay, so we're gonna go back to screen sharing. So basically what we want to show here is the lineage wealth gap between Blacks and whites. And before the pandemic hit, this number was our wealth net worth, which is all of your bills minus all of your, or all of your assets minus all of the debts owed equals your net worth or your wealth position. And so what we're saying, or what economists are saying, is that as a collective, Black Americans descended from chattel slavery were projected to fall to 0 wealth by 2023. And this was before the pandemic hit. So of course, when the pandemic hit, we saw how basically it revealed a lot about the vestiges of slavery, the vestiges of redlining and Jim Crow, and that Black Americans were dying at 3 times the rate of white Americans. And furthermore, even before the pandemic had hit, we were already at 50% of the homeless, the majority of the incarcerated relative to our 15% population. We believe that all of these results point to the fact that Black Americans who are descended from chattel slavery are facing genocide as a result of generational poverty, which ultimately prevents births, and government policies such as the drug war mass incarceration and mass immigration, which have all devastated our community. If we go to the next slide. So what reparations are not? There are a lot of municipalities that are calling for reparations or initiating reparations programs, and I'm sure my friend Chris Lodgson will be speaking more about some efforts out there in specific that I'm excited that you're going to hear about. But reparations are not infrastructure spending. They're not housing vouchers, education reform, prison reform, community development, or expatriation out of the country. Reparations are direct cash payments, policies, protections, and tax exempt status. That is what we as reparations are calling for broadly. We have an executive order on Biden's desk for some specific legislation for us, but can we go to the next slide, please? For some reason, I guess some people are having checking in, some people are not. So yeah, I guess I'm going to pause there. I just want to hit that topic broadly, that reparations are direct cash payments, policies, protections, and tax exempt status. Dr. William Garrity, who wrote the book From Here to Equality, Reparations for Black Americans in the 21st Century, is calling for approximately $400,000 as the number that it would take at minimum to close the lineage wealth gap. So that would be approximately $400,000 per eligible descendant. So with that, I'd like to now turn it over to Sharee DC, who is a genealogist, to tell us who is eligible for reparations and how to give you some tips on tracing your family tree. And then I will pick it up after that, and then we will move on to Chris and the rest of our program for tonight. Thank you. You can turn off the screen share. I don't believe Sharee has any slides.
No, I don't. I was on my phone looking for my charger, but no, we're gonna rock with it till I find it. How are y'all doing this evening? Sorry, I'm right here getting my charger. So, as Dawn mentioned just a moment ago, Dr. William Garrity, the proposed requirements for reparations would be that you meet two different criteria. One, that you be self-identifying as a Negro, African American, or Black for 10 to 12 years before any reparations is dispersed, any policy or anything like that. And that also you can trace an ancestor to the around 1850, 60, 70, essentially the end of antebellum. And what I do is essentially I'm a researcher for family history. So that's what genealogy is. Genealogy is not essentially spitting in a little tube and then getting a percentage or ethnicity estimate. That's not what it is at all. Those companies, like, in my opinion, is very unethical. They tell you in the fine print that that's not, it's for entertainment purposes. Okay. But you can use some information, that you get, like if you connect with some living people that have done their DNA as well, and they've already started to build their family tree, you can connect that way and go back further. Essentially, there's tons of free websites that you can use to build your tree, because everything you're getting is public documents. Like, that's how you're tracing your lineage. You identify yourself, your parents, and then you use documentation, whether it be a census document, birth records, marriage certificates, anything like that, to prove that connection going. And you just keep going back by each ancestor. I have a club on Clubhouse called Millennial Reparationists, where I hold rooms every week, helping people trace their lineage. And then in other spaces as well, I'm going to start doing it twice a week, honestly, because at the end of the day, it's great to talk about reparations, but you need to know where you fit in that story. And I may seem a little radical, and I say that I think we should get back everything that was taken from our lineage. And the only way to do that is to really identify what happened to your family in your story. So it's very addictive. It's empowering. It can be traumatic. I'm gonna keep it real. I'm in Washington State. Marijuana is legal. You hear me? Okay. Better believe I definitely have my support, because I found some crazy things. First and foremost, please talk to your family members, your elders. Like, do not discard that oral history. That is a primary source when we're talking about research. Also, if you have any kind of Bible or something like that, that might have like your grandma or your great grandma had, that has your whole family tree in there, you'd be surprised how many of your family members have done some of this research already. And that might save you some time. I could keep going on and on about that. I'm gonna stop there. But if anybody needs any kind of help, I have a website. It's millennialreparationist.com. There's a genealogy tab where you can, there's tons of links and different charts where if you wanna do it handwritten, you can start there. Just a couple of sites. Familysearch.org is 100% free. Ancestry.com has a lot of different resources kind of built into that site. And please look out for that club. Those rooms I have on Clubhouse as well, if you want to stop in there on Thursdays. And I'll probably do the other room on Tuesdays, just to give people space and get in the habit of doing this, because it may not be a sit down in 5 minutes and then you're done. Some people do this research for years and years and years. So I want to give you the tools so you can do this on your own and you're not paying anybody to do that. And have them documents ready, because you can't get reparations if you can't prove that you're a descendant. So let's start there. So thank you.
Okay, so we can go back to the slideshow, and we'll make sure that we'll try to leave some time at the end.
I was gonna say, before we go to the slideshow again, just wanted to introduce everybody that we have on, let them maybe introduce themselves, and then maybe everybody get a concept. Sharee, she just put her information into the chat box. I want everybody to check out the chat box if they want to connect with her, which I think would be great. She's doing amazing work for the people, so we got to make sure that we support. So I want to introduce. We have Chris Lodgson from CJEC. Brother, he's doing some great work out in California. He's a reparationist, and we're gonna let you introduce yourself, and then we're gonna go to the next person, so that you have 3 to 5 minutes. Let the people know who you are, the different work that you're doing. And and then we'll go to the next person.
So thanks for that. And I won't need 3 minutes at all. I won't need 2. I want to give a shout out to everybody that's here. First of all, everybody that put this together. It sounds like it's your second one of these conversations, first or second. So I want to just give y'all flowers right now, just to start. I want to just show love and share love. Thank you for doing these rooms. Thank you for making this kind of work happen. This is how we get reparations. This is part of how we get to reparations. So thank you. And also I want to say to Sharee, I want to connect with you because we're actually part of the work that we're going to be doing over the next several months here in California is going to be around helping people to actually show and prove that they are descendants of U.S. slavery. So let me start there too. Myself, for who I am, Chris Lodgson. I am one of the lead organizers for CJEC, the Coalition for a Just and Equitable California. Our team was responsible for helping to write and then enact the law that became California's, the law that created California's Reparations Task Force, first in the nation task force. So our team helped write the law, then we helped get the law passed. Since the law got passed in 2020, we've been working at the state level to make sure that the California Reparations Task Force and process is open and transparent to the community. And then also that the task force creates the strongest reparations legislation possible. So those are our 2 objectives now as we continue our work. I'm an organizer, been an organizer for many, many years, been doing organizing work both on the East Coast and the West Coast. Probably now, I don't be having no problem saying my age. I'm 38. So I've been doing some sort of organizing work really directly probably since 2009. So since about 2009, so about 13 years but I've been active in some way since I was in high school. So over 20 years doing some sort of active work for our people. So that's me. And I'm really, really happy to be here and talk about some of the things that we got going on in California.
Most definitely, man. Appreciate you for coming out. And we also gonna allow people to ask questions once we, introduce everybody else. Next, I want to introduce Michael Cogbill. He's a good friend of mine from Philly. He's actually running for Congress, and this is a brother. I think we gotta wrap our arms around him, but we also gotta build with him. So I want to, Michael, the floor is yours, and yeah, let's get it.
Can y'all see me well?
Going out.
Can you see me? Yeah, good evening, everybody. Really quickly, my name is Michael Cogbill. I met Brother Khaleef in my city, doing work in politics, fighting for our liberation. Myself here, excuse me if I look tired. I've been collecting petitions. As 3 days ago, we got a new map for our congressional district here in Pennsylvania. So I've just been pounding the ground, meeting voters and making sure I get myself on a ballot. But I'm running for United States Congress because I care about our people. I serve as the PAC chair of the NAACP. I quit my job during Black History Month at the Philadelphia Council, AFL-CIO, because I know there's a divide in economic stability for Black people. I am interested in hearing more about reparations. Khaleef and I had a brief conversation. I said I was interested in potentially segueing into talking about reparations in Bitcoin potentially. A lot of folks talk about that, how that money is supposed to help impact the communities. I think it's something we could potentially have a conversation about in Washington. My number one priority while I'm running is gun violence prevention. You just saw briefly in that slideshow that we make up for less than 14% of the population, but more than 50% of Black youth are actually dying of gun violence. And I think it's a problem. I think folks don't want to do anything because, like y'all said, genocide is the reason we're killing each other, we're wiping each other out. So some of the racist policies meant to hurt us don't have to be implemented as much. They just don't have to do anything about gun violence. I also worked at Ceasefire PA as an organizer. I'm challenging an incumbent. It's super tough, but I know what I'm doing. I know how to get on a ballot. My website is michaelcogbill.com. I ain't really want to talk too much about politics on this call. More so hear what folks had to say about reparations and how we could potentially get it done. I'm also running, my 10-point policy plan is from Huey and the Panthers. A lot of times you hear leftists talk about a universal income. Andrew Yang was talking about a universal income. Bobby and Huey, the Panthers been talking about a universal income and end to police brutality. The stuff we was fighting in the 50s, 60s, 70s, we still fighting against. Politics is a business, y'all. And I think it's a business I'm equipped for. Also in this space, liberation is a business. We gotta get it done. We gotta be sharp. We gotta elect Black progressives from around the way. I grew up in North Philly. So yeah, I'm so grateful to Khaleef for having me on, for giving me a second to share my platform. But this is a business. I'm running hard. My website is michaelcogbill.com. And I hope to have more conversations about reparations and how we could get that done. But we are all reparations. And it's super cool to hear on this conversation, folks call each other reparationists. A word that I heard was like separationist before, but it's super cool to hear new lingo. Y'all put me on to something cool. So I'm so excited to holler at y'all tonight. Thank you very much. Khaleef, thank you so much for having me.
Most definitely, brother, man. Listen, man, Philly, man, we got hold it down. That's the one right there. Next, we had a brother, Marcell Dixon. He's running for Congress in South Carolina against, we all know who, Jim Fish Fry Clyburn. Fish Fry. But shout out to my man Marcell, man. He's that guy. He's down in South Carolina. He's doing an amazing job. So that's another guy we gotta wrap our arms around as he make these moves. And as he's out here in the community doing what he's doing. So Marcell, the floor is yours, brother.
Hey y'all, I'm driving. I was on just an interview for the Gullah Radio. So if I disconnect, that's why. I'm driving through some back swampy roads. But my name is Marcell Dixon. I know the majority of y'all, so I don't have to say a whole lot. I'm glad to meet Mr. Cogbill here. He's running for the U.S. Congress. I'm gonna guess he's running for the U.S. House of Representatives. I hope y'all are able to hear me. My sound quality is great. I'm also running for U.S. Congress for South Carolina's 6th Congressional District. My website is marcellforcongress.com. And the reason why I'm running is for reparations. I have seen the way that white Americans have inherited land, homes, cars, companies, stocks, and all other assets. I have seen how Black Americans inherited poverty, disenfranchisement, trauma, and things that lead to the gun violence that Mr. Cogbill mentioned. And, I was always raised, if you break something, you fix what you broke. The American government inflicted these issues upon us. All the things we see, whether it's gun violence, whether it's the increase in suicide rates among our children, especially young Black boys, whether it's the fact that we have the highest rate of foreclosure, with 15 to 20% of the American population, probably more, but we're over 50% of the homeless. When COVID hit, 50% of Black businesses were immediately eliminated. We have the shortest lives, Black men of all groups, Black women of women. All of these things, the list goes on and on and on. We've lost 80% of our property since 1969. None of these things just happen by happenstance. They happen because it's just like a wound that has yet to heal. It gets infected, it becomes an even bigger danger. The wound that's been inflicted upon us was chattel slavery, but it was not healed. We did not get justice like we should have. Instead, it became more infected through the burning of Black Wall Streets, not just the one in Oklahoma, but there were at least 49 others, through lynch mobs, through land theft, through Jim Crow, through redlining, through the FHA that put railroad tracks and highways through our neighborhoods, through environmental anti-Blackness. The thing is, we did not cause this wound, and we should not have the responsibility of fixing it. So I'm running to make the American government be responsible for us the same way they took responsibility when they did settlement and treaties with these Native American groups and when they made reparations to Japanese Americans. They are most indebted to us, the most loyal, the realest Americans of all, Black Americans, to whom I refer to as freedmen. South Carolina is the state where we got the term 40 acres and a mule from. It started in Savannah, right across the bridge for me, but most of South Carolina was going to be given to freedmen, Black Americans, as reparations. So it makes sense that this state be the one that sends a true reparationist to Congress. And that is exactly what I'm going to do. So thank y'all for having me. I'm glad to be with all my Freedmen family here because I know most of y'all. So nice to see a lot of y'all again.
Most definitely, bro. Appreciate you for coming out and always speaking truth to power per usual. So, Don, let's get back to the PowerPoint so we can break these words down to the people.
Okay, I'm going to apologize in advance for my attention-hungry dog. It's not even really my dog, but yeah. So, thank you, Marcell, for that discussion and outline of where we're at. And that also speaks to his motivation for running for Congress, because the Congressional Black Caucus that we currently have has failed us. We just look back over the years, 60 years, we have had, representation. And meanwhile, we have really no policy to show for it. We see back in 1994, one of the policies that was actually put in place by Democratic administration has had a devastating impact on our community, and there's never really been a lot of pushback on that. We see that though the Congressional Black Caucus has had, leverage throughout the years. They never seem to use that leverage to the benefit of their constituency. Even though Joe Biden told us that he had our back, upon his election, we still haven't gotten any kind of policy. The George Floyd Act has failed, and the Congressional Black Caucus has essentially not really pushed for that. We even had Biden privately tell the Black Caucus on camera, and someone was happy to release it, that that we should not have too many expectations for reparations, and that also we should plan on working with the Hispanics more, because they were the they were a growing or part of the constituency. And so what we've seen is also HR 40, which is just a study to look at reparations for quote unquote African Americans, has actually sat in Congress for over 30 years while all other groups are getting policies. This Cities for Action is just one organization of mayors that it has been established for immigrants. I'll hearken you back to the Freedmen's Bureau, which was a network of field offices throughout the South after we had been emancipated, whose job it was to ensure that we were, integrated into society, given the goods that we needed. I have records from some of my great-grandparents going to the Freedmen's Bureau here in North Carolina to get supplies. I have deposit slips from one or two grandparents who had accounts at the Freedmen's Bank. And over the course of time, that bank had grown to $57 million in assets that was ultimately looted by the federal government when they put incompetent management in charge of the bank, and they changed the bank's charter. And this was $57 million in 1860 dollars. So that was more than $1 trillion in today's at regular rates. But I wanted to go to the next slide to give you an idea of the impact that our government's policies have had on the Black community, the freedmen community, the war on drugs and its impact on Black marriage, the failure of that Freedmen's Bank. Frederick Douglass said it was like adding another 10 years of slavery to the Negro. The drug war, mass incarceration. If we look at statistics, we'll find that over 50% of our marriageable age men are in jail, which obviously leads to a shortage on the outside and ultimately undermines the growth in our population and household formation. It's not helped by mass immigration, and which also is leading to, or has been partly responsible for, the chronic unemployment that Black men and women descended from chattel slavery have experienced. We can go to the next slide. This is just an example. This is a chart that shows from 1970 to 2020. And throughout this period of time, we have had not only Democratic majorities in both the House and the Senate, but we have also had periods of time where Congress has been presented specifically with forecasts of what was going to happen in the future. For instance, in 87, at that time, many people don't realize that freedmen or Black Americans descended from chattel slavery were overrepresented in the tech industry. And it was around that time that Congress was presenting with upcoming labor shortages and requests made to invest in Americans and invest in Black Americans. And they chose to do the opposite. And now we see that Black Americans are largely being shut out of the technology industry. Again, in 1997, Barbara Jordan, representative out of Texas, also said to the United States that white birth rates were falling. We were going to have labor shortages in the 2000s. We should invest in the Black community and invest in our schools. And again, the United States Congress, Democrats, Republicans, all alike made a decision to do exactly the opposite, and that was to import labor. This policy of just indiscriminate immigration into our communities, not taking into account the impact of this imported labor on our communities, obviously is something that we need to talk more about. And immigration is definitely an issue for all Americans, but even more specifically Black Americans, as we are hurt most by it, according to mostly all the data. So we can go to the next slide. We've been blatantly ignored despite the devastation from COVID, but nevertheless, the Biden administration, despite having George Floyd murdered on camera, despite George Floyd being murdered on camera, and just the number of anti-freedmen, Black American freedmen, hate crimes is in the multiple thousands relative to the level of hate crimes for Asian Americans. However, they were able to not only get 10 million in this particular policy, but this is just an example of all of the money that has been handed out to every other group except Black Americans since Biden has become president. And we all know that he would not be president without us. I'm sorry, my dog. He's even given Afghans money, people we've been fighting for the last 20 years. He's given reparations for the gay community, here money for Ukraine. None of these things require to study. These acts were in millions of dollars, just acts of Congress that took days versus the 30 years or more that we've been waiting for legislation. So we can go to the next slide. We need to speed it up. So this is just an example. The most heinous thing, I think, act underneath Biden's watch is this $450,000 payment that was being negotiated to illegal immigrants who crossed the border, were told not to come, but came anyway. And now they are on tap to get a settlement up to millions per family for breaking the law and coming into the country. And I'd like to point out that $450,000 is less than the per person, the estimated per person, per descendant amount to close the lineage wealth gap, which is the minimum that we're looking for. We even have over here benefits for Afghans. I think we can point to housing, jobs, and say that those are definitely impacted by immigration. Black communities typically have a lower level of resources available to them. And when we have communities, poor communities move in to our neighborhoods, that creates a strain on the resources. And I would, definitely contend that our homelessness rate is definitely connected to the levels of immigration that we are experiencing right now. So we can go to the next page. I just want to point out something that happened to us in 2016 that we may not have known about. In 2016, African American opens the floodgates and dilutes our claim. In 2016, Obama signed a bill that essentially is what I would consider paper genocide, such that now everyone can be included in the term African American. Everyone from Obama, who was Kenyan American, to Kamala Harris, to even Elon Musk. Anyone from the continent of Africa now can be considered an African American. And if we think back to the lineage wealth gap, I would also draw your attention to the impact that having people that, you know, are able to access the set-asides that we fought for would have an impact on the rate at which we were able to get ahead. So these are some of the other groups now that are taking advantage. If you go back, the African people of recognizing people of African descent and Black Europeans. And then we see hate crimes law for Asian Americans. And again, I put in here about Biden talking about reparations and how we should probably put that on the back burner. But I want to point out how it seems that other groups, you know, whether it's by race, are able to get policy, but apparently we are not getting the same level of policy. And I want to go on to our reparations fight and show how this impacts that and how it dilutes our claim as a result of, I guess, the perceived confusion about who we are as a people, because African Americans, now we have Black immigrants who have just come to the country, and because they may experience racial microaggressions or discrimination, now people on the California task force that's going on are, you know, questioning who, making sure that they, you know, who is eligible for reparations. I was going to play a clip, and Khaleef, I don't know how you feel about this, but I was going to play a clip from Timmerinsky, because I want to say that were it not for this quote unquote confusion on whether who reparations should be for, which is descendants of chattel slavery, American chattel slavery, and not all Black Americans, you know, that therefore the vote on eligibility didn't take place and it was postponed. And I think in general, what we found out is that the government or white supremacy has thought well in advance. It has made laws that state that you can't fix race-based harms with race-based policies. So where does that leave us when it seems like every other group appears to be getting policy? And that's how we come back to our federal designation, and that designation is freedmen. Freedmen transcends race, and that is the designation that we received once we went from slave to freedman, emancipated slave. And there are over 3 million documents attached to the designation freedman. And that is a designation that we as reparationists are saying that we need to pursue not only reparations, but all policy under that designation, and put down the use of race and become freedmen. I mean, you can call yourself Black American, whatever you want, but it's clear that you know, we're never really going to be able to get any kind of policy that isn't education based, and then education for all, or any kind of policies that aren't like pseudo community development or infrastructure like, because our claims, our issues keep being framed along the lines of race, when we've had a constitutional scholar clarified to us that if race is the measure by which we claim reparations, that's going to be challenged in the Supreme Court. So when,
I was going to say, I'm going to play that at the end. What I wanted to do, I wanted to set the floor. You know, I know some people wanted to ask some questions about, you know, various different things that they may have seen. Maybe people want to chime in as far as like ask questions to the different candidates that we have. Some people might want to ask questions to Chris. So what I would like to do is I want to have the floor open, and if you have a question, you want to leave a comment, we want to give the floor open for like a 2-minute dialogue maybe. You can raise your hand, and I'll call on you, and you can, you know, speak to whatever it is that you would like. If you want to ask a question, leave a comment, whatever the case may be. So the floor is open. So if the hand raising is on, please raise your hand so I can see something. Okay, let me hold on. So we have 2 people with their hand up. Hold on. So we have the First Lady Love. Okay. The First Lady Love, what is your question and how are you doing this evening?
Hey guys, can you hear me?
hey,
Hey, what's up, family? So honored to be here amongst people who are dedicated to the advocacy and fight for reparations. A question, oh, and who am I? That's my Twitter handle. My name is Kimberly Davis. I'm the founder of the National Coalition of Churches for Reparations. I've been trained by some of the best organizers, including Dawn, Brother Chris, Brother Roland, Brother Tony, just so many, you know, powerful people in this movement. My question is this, and it's to all of you, but it's to Brother Chris, but it's to all of you as well, if you have an answer. I was listening to the task force meeting, and I heard a question come about that I never heard before. The question was, they brought up the case and the topic of foster children. And I was like, what? They're going there? And then I was thinking, well, realistically, you know, because he was like, how are we going to save the poor foster children? And he was like, they deserve, if they're descendants of slaves, they deserve reparations too. And I thought about it. I was like, well, foster children really know their, you know, usually just say if you become a foster kid, it's usually because your parents couldn't, you know, deal with the situation, or maybe something happened, somebody died or whatever, and they usually have the parents, and they could probably still do the ancestry on that. But that made me think, well, they're probably talking about adoption, and that may come up. And so my question is to Brother Chris and anyone else who has any kind of strategy, do you guys have an answer for that? And because my concern is that just may open the door to, that's why you can't make it lineage based, you know? So that's my question.
Fire question. Thank you, Kim, and good to see you, fam. First of all, love you. Good to see you. Good to hear your voice. Also, you didn't say that you're also one of the co-creators of the Black Civics podcast too. So big shout out to you, Kim. So great question. And just for a little bit of context for the people who are listening. So you're talking about at the Thursday meeting of the California Reparations Task Force, which happened just this last Thursday. By the way, all California Reparations Task Force meetings are 2-day meetings. So they happen one day for 8 hours straight, 9 to 5, and then they recess and pick it back up the next day for 8 hours straight, 9 to 5. And so in the second day's meeting, which happened on Thursday, which is when they were about to vote on eligibility. They were about to vote on who is eligible for reparations in California, at least which standard they're going to use, lineage or race. What is the standard? And one of the questions that some of the task force members wanted more information on was this general question of how easy or difficult it may or may not be for people to prove their lineage. So we're lucky today because we heard from, I believe it was Sharee DC, who is a genealogist. The question of how are you going to prove that you are a descendant of U.S. slavery? How do you know that you are a descendant of U.S. slavery? No more is it okay for us to just say, I know because, and it's very, very important, like Sharee said, that we have these oral histories and that we know based on conversations with our family, we know what our parents went through, we know what lives we live. So we know in that sense. But now we at a point where we actually going to have to show some documentation. Now we at a point where and this is big love to us, we fought to even get here, right? We fought to get to this place where now we answering the question of how do we actually prove that we are descendants of U.S. slavery? And so they brought up an example of a foster care or our brothers and sisters who may be in the foster care system who may have a harder time or who we think may have a harder time. We don't know the answer to that question yet, and that's what we're going to hear about at the March meeting. By the way, they delayed the eligibility vote this week and moved it to the March meeting. So that's part of the questions that and the answers that the task force are going to have to discuss and then go through and give answers to. And that's part of why the task force is there. It's their job to help us figure out those details. It's their job to help us figure out, as Tansy is saying in the chat, who your people and how you know who your people are. And what documentation are we going to ask for people to have? So our general answer to that question is one, that we want the reparations task force to include in what they recommend for reparations to be money and resources to help people prove who they are, to help people actually prove what their eligibility is. But that doesn't mean that you don't use a lineage standard. That doesn't mean that you don't use what we all know should be the standard for reparations eligibility, which is your lineage. Now we have this was brought up with what I believe the brother Khaleef said earlier, and maybe I think Dawn brought it up too, and I'll wrap up my answer here too. We have and I said this on the live today earlier, I said it in the spaces back in January, we are caught and we are stuck between a rock, a stone, and a hard place, okay? On the one hand, we cannot use a race standard for our reparations eligibility because, as Dawn said, and as we've been saying, and as the top constitutional scholar in the country said, that's the person you're going to call when the courts are trying to throw it out. Professor Timmerinsky, he came to us this week and said, y'all can't use a race standard because the court's going to throw it out if you use race. But we can't use a lineage alone standard either. And this is something that we haven't gotten to yet as a people that much. And now we're starting to get to it. We can't use lineage alone anymore either. Because what if I'm somebody who I classify myself as white now, but I have at least one ancestor who was enslaved in this country? So if I have a lineage only standard, but I can't use race, then I may be somebody who right now may be classifying myself as white, but I just may so happen to have one ancestor who was enslaved in this country. So we have an issue, and the answer to this issue, I think we're going to get to some good solutions to it. But we do have an issue, and we know lineage must be the basis. We know we can't use race at all, but we need something else too. We need lineage plus something else too. So I did want to make that point to y'all, but to your question, Ken, specifically, our answer to that question is, one, we want you to help anybody who has any trouble finding their lineage and proving that they're descendants actually do that. That should be a part of our reparations. We shouldn't leave it to people to have to spend money and time trying to figure out. We need to partner with genealogists. We need to partner with folks who do that for a living, pay them, and help the people prove who they are.
Okay, I'd like to respond to that in one part and say that if you don't have an immigration paper trail, then you are and you are a Black, have it on your birth certificate. If you are a parent, a child of someone who was born in the 60s, their birth certificate is going to say X, Y, and Z. I believe I was probably part of the last generation that I don't even think they still put quote unquote race on your birth certificates anymore. So there's a stopgap there as well. But if you have an immigrant paper trail, first of all, that's a way to cut out, foster children, I'm sure, have plenty of paperwork and documentation on them. And then the other thing I want to say is that, what do I want to say? I mean, regarding the criteria, it's not one parent or one random relative who is a chattel slave. It is being able to trace one of your parents, either your mother or your father. So what the task force is doing, are members, for instance, Lisa Holder specifically, Dr. Cheryl Grills, people of a Pan-Africanist bent in COBRA, NARC, our legacy organizations who have typically wallowed in the race argument and have benefited because their organizations then will get funds that then they get to be the middleman for. And that's the train that we're on. That's what happened in Evanston when Pan-Africanists are in COBRA and their ilk get their arms around reparations. They turn Evanston into a Section 8 housing voucher. And that's my words, my hyperbole. But the point is, if we're talking about Dr. Darity's criteria, that's one parent. That's not your grandparent, but one parent at least. Timmerinsky will tell you that lineage, I don't know about the color and the race thing, but what I do know is that in a crime, in a class action suit, you define the group. We don't have to be Black to be paid reparations because it is because of our lineage. We are freedmen, emancipated slaves, descendants of slaves who are undergoing genocide currently. So our reparations is for genocide, as well as the genocide that is the cumulative effect of slavery, Jim Crow redlining, and what we saw happen in the COVID, a 50% abortion rate for a population of 14%. The fact that our Congress has made explicit decisions to disinvest in the Black community to the benefit, the fact that we are a minority group that is owed trillions of dollars, that went from being a slave class, then a federal designation changed to freedmen. And with that, we were owed trillions of dollars, least of which is 40 acres of untaxed land, that then it became in their best interest or their motivation to exterminate us. And that is what we see playing out. Genocide has no statute of limitations.
Well, Don, let me ask you
Right. Genocide doesn't have no statute. Hold on. Genocide doesn't have no statute of limitation. Absolutely. And we definitely gonna build upon that. Somebody else had their hand up. We wanted to get what's the brother named Lorado? I don't know.
Yeah, that's me, right. Lorado. Anyways, I wanted to mention is that people keep trying to make this research about freedmen ancestry so difficult. It's not. I've been doing this for over 10 years. There's like paper, all of us are recorded somewhere, whether it's through Freedmen Bureau labor contracts, 1870, 1880 census, you have death certificates, you have birth certificates that are publicly available. In some states, especially in the South, a lot of information is available. The marriage records, divorce, everything is just available. It can be found. In the case of, they mentioned this thing about the foster children. But foster children, like guys noticed someone mentioned, they have birth certificates. You know the lineage of these foster children. In the case of, let's say, an older person who was adopted by another family due to the parents not being married, they may have a birth certificate or they may not have a birth certificate that displays accurate information, but you can use circumstantial evidence because many times those what I would say secret adoptions, they tend to still live close by the parent and sometimes, most times, still reconnected with the family and live with them. So it's not a case of, oh, you just can't find information on these people. You can prove these people's lineage. Everyone's lineage in the United States can be proven. There's records everywhere, literally. All I gotta say.
That's already.
Thank you for that testimony, bro. So nobody else got their hand up. I know we had the Timmerinsky video that we wanted to play really quick. Hold on, Prince Ramsey's got his hand up. But before we go to Prince Ramsey, I know we got the Timmerinsky video from the last, I think it's from the last hearing, or is it from when he was on the podcast? I'm not sure, but we're gonna play that.
It's from the hearing. You might want to play like the first minute or two, or maybe not. I mean, the point is that we have a task force, so we're going to be faced with people who are used to doing things the old way, where there's really not a lot of political will, or maybe even the knowledge or languaging to support specific policies for us. We see what happened. Some of you may know about the Black Farmers Bill that's been held up because other groups are saying that it is discriminating against them. I think what Timmerinsky is saying is that our lineage is tied to an event. So an event doesn't require, you can have the event of the Holocaust didn't affect all Jewish people. So it only affected some Jewish people, and those people who were affected by it got reparations. The same with the Japanese Americans. All Japanese who were interned did not get reparations because they were not interned here in the United States. So really what we have going on in California and what we're going to see across the country is that we have Black immigrants who feel that they are owed reparations. No matter what it is you hear, despite that, that is what is going on. We have African immigrants, we have Caribbeans who believe that they are owed our reparations. And now we know that unequivocally, that any organization, any constituency that is co-signing on including immigrants in our reparations is basically against us, is anti-Freedmen, because
hold on. What you said, yes. We got to make that clear so that people really can understand.
Right. We need to make it clear that we cannot flatten Blackness, that we can't include all. We can't have reparations based on race because someone was enslaved in the Caribbean or in Brazil and they're Black doesn't mean that they are owed reparations in the United States. It means that they have a claim to file in those other countries. We are a generous people, but that generosity is going to get us all the way messed up and not get any kind of cash reparations. We might get an education bill. We might get some Section 8 housing vouchers, but we're not going to get reparations. It has to be specific. It has to be lineage-based. Otherwise, it will be challenged in the Supreme Court. And now we've just seen the new Supreme Court potential. Her saving grace is that she withheld discovery of some racially based information for a group of Black Americans that sued, I believe it was Lockheed, and because
we don't have any friends in the Supreme Court, whether the new or old. Black or white.
No, and I'm just saying that that's just another example.
Let me make a couple of points here too about the reparations task force here in California. So one, let me give you some insight here. So one, to do anything on the California Reparations Task Force, you need 5 votes. There's 9 members on the task force, so to do anything, you need a majority. So you need at least 5 votes to do anything. There are right now at least 5 votes for lineage eligibility. Right now, there are already right now 5 votes. There were 5 votes actually on Thursday. To be honest with you, if you listen to the conversation right before the delay, Chair Moore was in favor of the lineage standard. Dr. Javon Scott Lewis was in favor of the lineage standard. Monica Montgomery Stepp was in favor of the lineage standard. Dr. Brown, Amos, I believe it's Amos Brown or Dr. Brown, Reverend Brown was in favor of the lineage standard. To believe it or not, Senator Stephen Bradford was in favor of the lineage standard, and it sounded at some points like Assemblymember Reginald Jones Sawyer was in favor of the lineage standard. But that's at least 5 right there. So there were 5 votes. Brown, Moore, Stepp, Lewis, Bradford. There were 5 votes already there to at least stay within the legislative intent of the bill. If you listen to the conversation that was happening, there were 5 votes already there. There are still 5 votes, we believe, for the lineage standard at least. So I wanted to make that point there, that there is not a there are at least 2 members who I'm pretty sure are not in favor of the lineage standard. That's Lisa Holder. I think that's most clear, and Dr. Cheryl Grills. I believe that's also most clear, right? But there are at least 5 votes for the lineage standard right now, and what we want to do is make sure that we keep that 5 vote majority. Last thing to say is we don't want to oversimplify this though, because again, we know we can't use race. I think we all agree that we can't use race. Race opens it up to what I was calling earlier Black non-descendants. So Black non-descendants come in if we use race. And the courts throw it out. And the courts throw it out if we use race. But if we use lineage only, we get non-Black descendants.
Oh, well.
Descendants, right? So what we want to do is make sure that we have lineage plus something. And there's some conversations about what that plus something is, but we know it can't be race because of what we just said. So I wanted to add that in there because we are going to have some new thinking about what the upgraded, up-leveled up standard is. Dr. Darity standard is a great place to start, but Dr. Darity has a race part in his standard.
So Chris, I would say that we would,
race. Mm-hmm.
I would say the goal would maybe try to be something that maybe something like lineage and a harm thing, like maybe lineage and harm. I think that might be the best for the long.
That's exactly what we were saying. Lineage plus harm may be the answer here. Lineage plus harm.
Yeah, lineage plus harm.
What was that Net was saying earlier today about harm? Didn't she?
Harm could be, I'm not sure. I'm just saying the situational words though. When we're looking at it in a legal constitutional manner, you say, all right, well, you can look at the harms that have been done from this date to this date on this specific group of people. Whereas though, especially for somebody that don't know what we're talking about.
Oh, I got you. I'm sorry. Yes, exactly. Harm and I got you. Yeah, you're right. So I see reparations really as a series of pieces of legislation. I think it's unrealistic for us to expect like some big omnibus bill that, can somehow encompass everything, unless they're just going to say, we're closing the wealth gap and here's your 40 acres, untaxed. So yeah, they can do that. That's cool. I do like the state by state tallying of the bill. I like the accountability that creates. And so I'm hoping that, people are inspired by coming and participating in these calls to get involved further. We'll have some calls to action. But I think that pretty much sums up. I don't think I'll make us suffer through the date. I find it very interesting.
We just got one person with their hand up. That's Prince Ramses, and then if nobody else had a hand up, we're gonna try to close out by 8:30. So Prince Ramses, the floor is.
I got one more point to add after the brother goes.
Yeah, and I do want Amaru to go through the voter guide.
Definitely.
So yeah,
definitely. Prince Ramses, the floor is yours.
Thank you, bro. I just want to say, you from Philly, you and Mike from Philly. I spent 3 years in Philly. 7th grade, I went to Jinx. 11th grade, I went to Roxborough. And 12th grade, I went to ENS, George Washington Carver, School of Engineering and Science. I'm sure y'all know what that is, right? So shout out to the Philly love, some brotherly love. And then I got a few points I want to jump into. By the way, I'm the Drone Lord on Twitter personally, and then we're getting started with the Freedmen Party as well. So those are my Twitter handles. And then a lot of my questions are for Chris or anyone that was following the AB 3121 stuff. And then I have a few more things to add. But Chris, just really quickly, if you wanted to answer, or actually, let me go into the shorter thing and then I'll go into the Chris stuff. Dawn just mentioned calls to action. I just created a page for the Freedmen Party called Calls to Action. So I would love y'all feedback on that. It doesn't have to be on the call, but check out that link. I'm trying to put together all the bills, all the policies, so HR 40, SB, S40, AB 3121, the Mississippi Bill 666, everything that relates to Freedmen policy, and then Freedmen candidates that are running for office that we endorse, and then you can figure out which one you want to contribute to. I like what, I forget if it was Chris, I think it was Chris. Chris, you put out that call to action, I believe. It was either you or Chad, I forget. But that call to action, I'm trying to automate for what we're trying to do as well. Basically, if you submit to the form, it'll message every person on the task force and that task force email. I'm working on calls and text, but I don't think they accept text. But the calls I can get working next. So check out oh, thanks, Chris. I think you said great work. Thank you. And then the other thing I was going to mention, I heard Mike is running in Philly or in Pennsylvania for his district. And so props to you for doing that. I'm literally working on a part for the party where we can help candidates. So we're already connected with Marcell, Tamara, and Reverend Williams. What we're about to do is make it easy for anyone that wants to run to get their message out via email, via phone, like calls and texts, like phone banking, but like automating all these things, automating your calls, automating your texts, automating your email sending out, and then social media ads, getting your social media out. And then if you need visuals like a website or videos or posters or flyers, I can help with that too. The party can help with that. So I want to offer that as a thing. Thank you, Vanna, for the shout out too. Thank you, John. Last things I have are mainly for Chris, but anyone who watched the AB 3121 can jump in. So firstly, about the task force. I looked up their legislation, the membership section 3 under the actual bill, and looked at how the bill or how the task force was composed, and then how we can, alter the composition of the task force. Because it was disappointing to see literally one vote, any vote, for the opposition to delay things, right? Not to mention that they pushed a motion out of nowhere that wasn't on the table. So if you go to the membership section, I'll try to put a link. But if you go to the membership section for the AB 3121 bill that made it into law, you can see how it's possible that we can replace people. So they mentioned things like you have to be an academic, you have to have involved in a reparationist or a civil rights group. They mentioned things like focused on your community, the actual community that was harmed. So these are the things we can go back to in legislation. And then there's a part that says vacancy. It says in the event of a vacancy, that vacancy will be filled by the same order of operations in terms of who selects. The governor selects 5, and then 2 other people select 2. So 2 each. So basically, I looked at that, and that's the only option I see in terms of if we want to change the task force composition. And then I want to bring up some more kind of like bigger questions. Let me make sure I went through everything. In terms of the bill, we don't got to harp on this, but in terms of the actual bill that made it into law, things that may be a challenge if we want to change the composition is there's words like people of color and things like that that we may have to attack. But in the call, Kristen Mullen, in this call, we brought up good questions that I'm going to add. But in the AB 3121 call, Kristen Mullen brought up a good point that I want to bring to Chris, which is who qualifies. So once you meet, let's say we match the lineage, we match the harm, who qualifies in terms of a California person? Is it someone she brought up? Is it someone who was born there? Is it someone who like lives there? How long do you have to live there? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or do you know what I mean? So those are important questions.
At that point, can I just interject? At that point, that's when I know that's not my business.
The residency. That's so the residency eligibility is actually going to be what I think is, and let me say it again here, the residency eligibility question is going to be the next leg of the eligibility conversation. So,
but you guys they don't need to figure that part out next time, do they?
No. That is going to be for later conversations. We got to get the lineage part right first. So that's the next conversation. So there's no straight answer to your question, Prince Ramses. By the way, great work on the site, great work on the political education. We'd love to connect with you, brother. Keep up the great work. Keep up everything you are doing and do more of it and bring more people into it. So keep up what you're doing. Definitely got my blessings on that. So to your questions though, and I'm gonna have to break in about 2 or 3 minutes because I'm actually gonna meet with our community engagement team here. There are gonna be some new calls to actions coming out, by the way, fam. So just a heads up, be ready to take new action probably in the next 12 to 18 hours. So stay tuned to Twitter, etc. But to your question, I'll take the last one first. The residency eligibility question, there is no straight answer to yet because we don't have an answer to that question yet. That will be for the task force to decide. We're going to have ideas for it, and our team is actually working through a bunch of different ideas on it. We've actually been meeting pretty regularly over the last few weeks, specifically on this residency eligibility question. There's a lot of questions. Do you have to be born in California? Do you have to be a current California resident? For how long? Can you take your reparations with you if you are a current California resident and you want to leave? There's all kinds of residency questions that we're going to have to get to, and we don't have answers for those questions yet. That's what the task force is there for, and that's what they're going to be discussing. Maybe they'll start that discussion in March, but I don't think they'll answer that question in March. Maybe they'll have a couple of answers around it, but they're not going to solve that question in March. I think they're going to mostly talk about the eligibility, lineage versus race, and lineage versus some tier race sort of eligibility. So that's a short answer to your question on residency. There is no answer yet. We have some ideas, but the task force will be figuring those answers out. To your first question about changing the composition of the task force. So you have to decide if that's even necessary, because in order to do anything on the task force, you need 5 votes. So 2 people can think of something totally different, but is that going to be enough to actually do what they want to do? And I maintain a position that going into Thursday, there were 5 votes for lineage eligibility. There were 5 votes for the legislative intent that Dr. Shirley Weber, who wrote the bill, told the task force about in January. So there were already the votes, and I maintain right now that there are still the votes for lineage eligibility. So whether the vote is 5-4 or 7-2 or 6-3, I am confident that we will get the lineage legislative intent standard done and voted on at least into March and in March. But thank you for actually going through the bill and looking for ways to hold these members accountable. This is something that actually was missing from the bill. This was a flaw in the bill. Let's be honest.
There's no part that's
there's no way, there's no clear way. Now there are ways for people to be asked to leave a state commission. So for example, if the person who appointed you calls you up and says, listen, I'm asking you to step down. It will have to be a voluntary step down, but there are ways to pressure people to do that. But you're right to point to the fact that there is not a clear way to remove somebody from the task force. So for those of y'all who have bills like this popping up in your area, or even for the federal bill, take this as a lesson that part of what your legislation should have in it is a way to remove task force members. Now, there is a way, legally, legislatively. What we would have to do, and it's way more work, what you would have to do is write new legislation now, get that legislation introduced that amends the old law and says, all right, I'm going to write legislation now that makes an amendment to an existing law, because you can write a law to change a previous law. So I'm going to write a law now and get it introduced and passed that amends the old law and adds something in there to make people be able to be removed under certain circumstances. That is, that's the sort of hardcore way to do it. But that takes a lot more work, because first of all, you can't even introduce new legislation right now here in California anymore. You got to wait until next year, because the last day to introduce new legislation was about 9 days from yesterday. So it was on February 18th. So that means the next time you possibly even have a chance to introduce new legislation is January 1st of 2023. And then it has to work through the process, and it has to get passed. By the time it gets passed, the task force work could be over already. So, that's one way. And again, you have to decide if you think that's even worth it. I don't think that's the best use of our energy right now. I think right now our best energy is focusing on making sure that we keep the majority that we have for the lineage standard, and then make sure we press forward with that. Last thing I'll say is we have another piece of legislation right now that I wanted to mention, because Khaleef asked me to mention it. It's AB 1604. If you read AB 1604 Section 4, there is a piece in there that makes California, for the first time ever, break down and disaggregate and delineate Black people's data. Pay attention to that. That's also moving. That's already been introduced. That's already making its way through the committee process here in California. That's going to have an impact on what the reparations force does too. But I just wanted to make sure that y'all were aware of that too. And with that, I have to sign out because I have a meeting starting right now. But I'm happy to come back. And if you have any questions about me, or for me, and or about me, please feel free to reach out.
All right.
Throw those numbers of that. If you could throw those numbers of that legislation in the chat box, if people want to look that number up. And,
but Chris, thanks for joining us tonight, and definitely will be promoting your calls to action, and
thank you.
To more updates and talking with you further about this, definitely, and hopefully you and Sharee DC will connect on the genealogy. So again, thank you, old friend. We go way back.
Yes, way back.
I appreciate it. Chris holding things together for the dry spell there, and we owe Chris a lot of flowers as well. So thank you. So with that, I'd like to have Amaru launch into our voter guide, which we wanted to, I think we kind of outlined or attempted to outline, in addition to what reparations is and is not, and also who is eligible. I don't think I really got too deep into the Freedmen classification, but we are going to have these meetings every fourth Sunday, and the goal is to have a resource for your family and friends. So a lot of this information, I see a lot of familiar faces, but we want to get people who aren't on Clubhouse with us or Twitter Spaces, and we want to bring them into these types of meetings so they will become familiarized with what it is we need to put this fire out in our community. And I have Amaru talking about, we've been voting Democrat as a collective for the last 60 years or so. The wealth gap has actually widened in that time period. I gave out some heuristic statistics. And so we're seeing all these other groups getting policies. We're seeing our young people being left behind. So we believe that we have to do something about it. Our vote needs to be weaponized. The Democratic Party is taking us for granted. If I can get Khaleef to please pull up Afro pick. Amaru, are you ready to rock and roll?
I'm ready to rock and roll.
All
Just let
right.
me know when he has it pulled up, because I'm looking at it from the phone. Once he gets it pulled up, I can go through the different PowerPoints, the slide. Hope y'all got y'all natural. Y'all ready to pick it out? Got your Afro ready to pick it out?
You see, I got mine.
Already.
I'm going to send everyone on the call a copy of this presentation too. So.
Okay. Does Khaleef have it pulled up?
Yep, there you go.
All right, guys, there it is. Afro, get your Afro, get your pick to pick your Afro. Afro is reparationist. American Freedmen Reparations Organizing, or American Freedmen Out. Like Don spoke of, we want to exit the two-party system. I'm a registered independent. Some folks say become non-party affiliate. Before I get too deep into what I was going to say about Afro is that, listen, you got to be civically engaged if you do change your party, because if you live in a place like I do here in Kentucky, you have to be able to, if you want to vote for a Democrat, you have to register as a Democrat. If you want to vote for a Republican, you have to be a registered Republican to do so during the primaries. And then during the general election, you can go back to your independent registration or non-party affiliate. So yeah, Afro Pick is a brainchild of me and Don. We sat there and thought of some acronyms that made sense toward our political agenda. Afro, like I said, American Freedmen Reparations Organizing. Pick, political ideology. Coordinating kit. This is your kit right here. So the second slide, like it goes to what are the bullets? Who will we vote for? Basically, and I got my reading glasses on, y'all bear with me. Reparations, who will we vote for? Reparations support Reconstructionist candidates, not just any old Republican or any old Democrat. We're talking about people who are focused on Reconstruction, the unfinished business at hand, who agree the American Freedmen Reconstruction and fight for the repair that American freedmen deserve. Also, second, reparations support hire Americans first. Candidates who support mandatory employee E-Verify and prioritizing U.S. citizens in the job market. As you can see, I don't know if y'all got the book from Back of the Hiring Line, 200 years, I believe it's 100 years of mass immigration and how it has affected Black Americans as a whole, freedmen as a whole when it comes to the job market. Reparations also support immigration reform. Candidates who support a moratorium on new immigrants or immigration and the 1997 Jordan immigration reforms. What we're looking at and what has been happening to us throughout the history is that immigration has often been used to oppress and suppress our wages and keep us tethered to the bottom. So we're looking for candidates who's gonna look at the bottom caste, which is who we are, the American freedmen, and how immigration affects us. We're asking for a reform. I mean, I want an immigration moratorium to where for the next 5 decades, they're not bringing any new people in. But if we can't get that, at least make the number smaller, as Barbara Jordan has suggested, down to, I believe, 300,000 a year, something like that. Also with a special interest on chain migration, because, you know, not only do these people that they allow come in, they're allowed to bring their immediate family in, which can cause a domino effect as well. And on the last bullet that goes through the 8 points of what we're the nuts and bolts of what we're really saying about the organizing and getting our pick out. When it comes to these candidates, if you want to know, well, often it's said, well, who should I vote for? Or what should they be aligned with? Use these points, these 8 points. If you run into a candidate that don't support none of these 8 points, then do like what I would do, and I'll vote for their opponent just because. Reparations are calling for all American voters to weaponize or withhold their votes from all politicians who do not support an executive order for 1865. That is our current specific reparation bill. I think that's being head up by NASD in California. This bill right here is everything that HR 40 isn't. Do not support we will not vote for candidates that do not support employer mandatory e-verification and do not support the 1997 Georgia immigration reform. And we do not support candidates who do not prioritize American workers, like I said before, with special consideration to American freemen. We do not support candidates who do not support the delineation of the American freemen for the ultimate goal, for the ultimate purpose of economic set-asides. This is the problem that we're in. We are the American freemen. That was our designation then, and it should be our designation now, political status now. Unfortunately, throughout the annals of history, they have been chipping away at that, and now we're at the point to where we have people, skin folks who are not kin folks, being able to suck the resources out of our community and leave our people in a more dire straight position than we currently were. So delineation is like my baby. That's something that we have to do. Not only do we have to do it just because we are unique people with a great history, we got to do it in order so that we can survive as a people. Number 6, if they do not support the 13th Amendment, anti-13th Amendment exception clause, that exception clause was a slap in the face done to us by the United States government at the time when they put that exception clause in. It wasn't even supposed to be in there. I think it was Stevens who fought against that during that the making of the 13th Amendment, one of the radical Republican Reconstructionists, is because the exception clause was placed in there, which actually institutionalized the institution of slavery. That's why we're faced with the mass incarceration, the preschool to prison pipeline that we are now. We, as an abolitionist, we've been fighting to get that amendment either thrown out, rectified, or just come up with an entirely new amendment altogether, which is a hell of a fight. But with the exception clause in it, that's a guarantee, because the 13th Amendment was for us, that's a guarantee that mass incarceration will always be used against us. So we need somebody that's, and I think that I think it was Minnesota, one of these states, maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, had took it out of their state amendment, took the exception clause out. So there is precedent that has happened. We're also pro-nuclear family, American Freedmen family. We understand we have American freedmen that have different lifestyles or whatnot, but we want to put the American freedman man and woman first and foremost, and child first and foremost. We want to protect our image. As we look at TV programs and TV stations, you don't see enough of American freedmen couples doing what couples do. So we want to push our pro-nuclear family as well. And also, last but not least, is pro-Second Amendment. I am a Kentucky boy. I hunt with crossbows, 310 shotgun. That's what I do, and I defend myself. You know what I mean? So I think that and as a American freedman, It is our duty to defend ourselves in the face of WS, better known as white supremacy or any other type of domestic terrorist or terrorism that's heading our way. So we are pro-Second Amendment. You hear the Democrats, they're always talking about, you know, making it harder to get guns, which it should be hard to get guns, but nonetheless, though, they always want to concentrate on our community. We cannot stand to be disarmed as a people because we are in the belly of the beast. So we should, and we want to support pro-Second Amendment candidates. So y'all, thank y'all for coming here and pick your afro.
Thank you, Amaru. That was great. We'll be talking a lot more about that all into the election season. So that's the first run of that. And now we have the real call to action from Dr. Claude Anderson. I'll let you cue that up, Khaleef, and let you wind us down. I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming out and participating in this, and just understand that this will definitely be a once every fourth Sunday event. We want to get newbies to these calls. So you want to, if you're an organizer, you want to invite politicians, candidates, elected officials that you think, you know, can be enlightened, your friends and family. We'll try to have content every month that will start out with the basics, and then go into a special topic, and then guests, and then calls to action. So with that, Khaleef, thank you. Amaru, thank you. Thank you, everyone else. And I'm going to go on mute. We can't hear it.
You probably got to unmute Khaleef if you playing it.
Yeah, make sure your computer speaker or whatever.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, I was on mute. Let me get that right back for y'all real quick, because he was talking that stick talk. That's my guy, Dr. Claude. Hold on. Let me get that up for y'all.
Promotion of reparations for Black folk. Second level 2. What we must do at second level 2 now is to start having fact-finding hearings. You must have fact-finding hearings all over this country. And you're going to have fact-finding hearings on at least 2 different levels. One is you're going to go out fact-finding about what roles governments have played in the reparations, in the slavery trade against Black folk, and the enslavement of Black folk, the marginalization of Black folk. And that should break down into 2 levels. One is to investigate all levels of domestic governments, that's city, county, federal, and state governments. And the second group would go after the international. So you should have 2 groups of Black folk in this country exploring and fact-finding on what roles government have played, one domestically and one internationally. On the left-hand side, you should be doing the same thing for the domestic side. You should be going after.
So, you know, we had to close out with the Dr. Claude piece, and I just wanted to say I'm glad everybody came out. I'm glad everybody came to, you know, share a word, spread a word, drop some knowledge, give some wisdom. Yes, we love Dr. Claude. I see some folks got their hands up, but I just wanted to say, like I said, I'm glad folks was able to come out, you know, learn something new maybe. Like Dawn was saying, next time we want to try to invite our peoples out from our community. We want to try to invite people that's doing the work in our community. We want to try to invite, you know, people that may be running for office, because at the end of the day, you know, we all know this is a who, but other people outside of us have to know it, and then we have to have it in a digestible manner where though it makes sense for folks to be able to comprehend, understand, and understand everything that we're saying. So, you know, with that being said, we have a few people who had their hand up. We're gonna let people, you know, give a statement, maybe ask a question. I will ask, could we limit it to 2 to 3 minutes because it's getting late. I don't know, you know, where folks are at. I'm on the East Coast. It's about to be 9 o'clock. So yeah, so let's start off with Miss Giselle. She has her hand up, and Miss Giselle, the floor is yours. 2 to 3 minutes.
And hey guys, I'm going to keep it brief. We do have a petition that's coming up. We're trying to finalize the verbiage on the petition. As a response to the recent claim of us getting all of the votes for HR 40 to go through, as well as the delay with the California task force, we're pushing a petition to demand a lineage-based focus. We also have a general letter that we're going to get out to everyone. So Dawn will have those letters. We was literally finishing some of the verbiage earlier. We're going to finish the verbiage for everyone. And those letters, you can take it from your email, put in your name and your email address, as well as your signature at the end. And then you can, we prefer that you mail the letter out. You email the letter to your local politicians, all of them. And then for the petition, sign the petition and share it with your family and friends. So Dawn will have that information. We were literally fixing it before the meeting started.
Yeah, the beauty of having people to register for this is that I will be able to share this with about 80 people. So even if people didn't show up, I still have your information. So you will be organizers one way or another.
Great. Next we have Trehan, my bad, Trehan Cruz. I might say the name.
I don't think I'm Trey Hearn. Why is Trey Hearn's name popping up when I raise my hand? But my name is State Representative John Thompson.
Hello.
I'm a freshman legislator here in the state of Minnesota. And me and Trey Hearn just introduced the Minnesota Migration Act to the body. I just put the bill in the hopper Friday.
Congratulations.
Reason I raised my hand.
You did say you were going to call in on it, so that's probably why his name is showing up.
Reason I raised my hand real quick is I spoke to my friend on July 5th of 2016 about the murder of Alton Sterling. And we talked in front of the liquor store about that for about a good 10 minutes, numb to that murder. But the very next day, my friend was murdered by the St. Anthony police officer here in Minnesota, my friend being Philando Castile. But I promised him in 2016 that we're gonna be the change we wanna see. So I put my name on the ballot and I won like 89% of this district. Never been a legislator, never been a politician, but I've been Black all my life. So, here I am again, it's coming up, like they already flew somebody in here to try to primary me from DC. And so we just had our caucus numbers and I crushed them again. So I don't know what they're trying to do, but the people are finally speaking. And so, but if you look at some of my bills, they're controversial. Like I have the Philando Castile Act, where I asked for like $754 million of investments to be pumped into our community, or complain about carjacking. Like that's the other option. And our colleagues are like, what is those? What is that? Reparations? That ain't even a damn down payment. That ain't even a down payment for like that's a little bit of money. But I just wanted to hop in and just like let everybody know that whatever we're trying to do, or whatever you're trying to do, man, it is possible. I promise you, it's possible. And man, keep applying pressure, because the thing is, without y'all resistance, we lose our existence here in Minnesota, being like the epicenter where police keep killing brothers that look just like me and you. So I want to say thank y'all for the work you're doing, and please utilize my office, man, for anything. I don't care if it's to carry boxes. Like they've never seen a legislator like us, but there's thousands more doing push-ups for the next election cycle. And I just wanted to chime in and say that to y'all.
Yes.
Most definitely, we will be in contact, brother. Keep up the good work.
Definitely.
Yeah, most definitely. So next, we got it on Marcell. The floor is yours, brother.
Hey, y'all. I'm actually just leaving from an interview. I'm glad y'all were still here when I came back. I would like to just say Cogbill, and I forgot the gentleman's name, but I remember him, the Philando Castile murder is still one that sends a surge of rage, murderous murderous racially. So I would like to, and Don, and this is one of the things I know you're really, really good at doing. I think that those of us who are either trying to get in government or may have the desire to get into it, whether it is municipal, state, or federal, I think that there should be like a little community of us, because oftentimes I've been meeting so many people who want to get into government on a reparations platform. Now, I may have an ideal situation. I'm running against a person who everyone knows is awful, and I'm in a majority Freedmen district. And other people may be in areas that are far more challenging, and people need a support system. When I started off, I was fortunate to have Tamara and, Nicole and I have recently become reacquainted, but people need to have a support system, because like Representative Thompson just said, I cannot imagine what he goes through. Because look, this is a friendly environment right here. But when you are in those closed rooms by yourself, the pressure is on. Now, because my campaign against who has been getting some traction, I've had some big names from the Democratic Party strategists reach out to me, and two of them, two white people. And it's amazing how bold they thought they were going to be with me. They told me, you need to go ahead and abandon the R word. And I already knew what it was, but I played them. I said, what's the R word? Just like, and I told them, hell no. It's like, well, I'm just trying to give you cast a widest net as possible. I said, let me tell you something. You might have to go ahead and tear a hole to that damn net, because if that's the net you're going to want me to cast, then I don't want it. The pressure is really put on us. So we need to have safe spaces, for lack of a better terminology, because this is not something that exists once we leave these meetings. We deal with people who are not on code and they don't want to be on code. And I'm talking about not white people. I'm talking about people who look like us, who are freedmen. They literally would try to put the pressure on you, sell out. I've been going through it, and my campaign ain't even high in the echelons yet. So I would like to connect with Cogbill and Representative Thompson. I'm very active on Twitter. I'm just gonna put my Twitter tag there, and I'll give my number out as well. And that's all I want to say. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Khaleef, for inviting me, and Don. And
there's another candidate. His name is Nick Muhammad. I know you know him, Representative Thompson. He's running for office for county commissioner. Oh my God, I heard him. I was on a podcast with him. If I could move to Minnesota and vote for him, I would. But unfortunately, that's interesting. We have somebody joining the call now. I would call them out, but they have the same last name as me.
No, I'm glad everybody set this up correctly. Shout out to the candidate. Shout out to the reparation.
Yes.
Or Nate Muhammad. Shout out to the candidate. Shout out to the reparation. And shout out to the people that's doing what they doing in the movie. We greatly appreciate you.
I love these people coming at the end of the show. That's funny.
I'll be back. I'll be back every time y'all have a meeting from here on out.
Thank you.
When's the next time? When's the next meeting?
It's the fourth Sunday.
The fourth Sunday, the last Sunday of March.
Okay, so is it always going to be at 8?
7.
7? Okay, I'm going to mark my calendar.
Yeah, I'm going to send everyone on the list a follow-up. So hopefully you will definitely mark it on your calendar so it'll be there. And then, people who are interested in getting more involved, we have a weekly organizing circle every Sunday at 4:00 that, we vet you a little. But if you are interested, reach out to me or Khaleef, and we can plug you into our circle. We are pursuing delineation policy, task force, basically reparations, using some of the types of legislation you heard about tonight. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Some great legislation on the way. Shout out to the people that has been helping crafted and get it organized so that, you know, once we put this in the face of the legislators, that they can go out there and get that job done for us instantly. So 8:57, we had a great night, family. This is going to be posted on YouTube so that you can send out to your family, send it out to your friends and your folks, and let them know what's going on. And I just really want to say before we close the night out, you know, this idea that we have is going to be so powerful as we keep moving forward in this fight. We, you know, it's people over politics. And now that we're playing a game of politics, you know, the great Herm Edwards said, you play to win the game. You don't play to just be on the sidelines. And a lot of the time, people be stuck on the sidelines just trying to be observant of what's going on. And one of the reasons why we set this space up and set this stage up is so that we can have our stage to be who we are at all times and the best version of ourselves. So we don't have to go to other places and crash those places. We can be in our own space and be ourselves. So, you know, we plan to win the game. So we plan to win the game. Listen, the rules is very limited. We gonna win. We gotta get the W by any means. So with all that being said, good night, peace, love, and reparations. You know, and have a good night. And talk to you all soon. Peace, family.
Reparations.